So it's good to have this conversation and talk a little bit about racial diversity and racial justice. Give us paint a bit of a picture. Tell us some of your experiences of experiencing racism and the like.
So I grew up in the fantastic, well, when I say fantastic city of Liverpool, is because I think it is still a great city. But I grew up in Liverpool, was born in Liverpool in the 70s, giving away my age, in the 70s. And it was, I don't know why my parents moved us into an area where we were the only black family. We lived in a place called Eggborough, and we were the only black family in this area. So from as early as I can remember, I have put up with abuse, racism, like from an early age. It was just constant. My friends who I hung around with were all white, and they were brilliant friends to me, to be honest, but all their parents were racist. So I wasn't allowed to go to their houses. They didn't want me in their houses, and my friends couldn't understand that. But we'd always have them in ours, and so we'd have them around for dinner. But we weren't allowed I wasn't allowed in my friend's house. What was pretty sort of like hard was that the school that I went to, again, you either hung around with black people or you hung around with white. And I probably knew that then there was something different, because I could get away with hanging around with both because of the area that I lived in. So I could, and my black friends didn't understand how I could flitter between the two and be liked by both sets. So black kids would enjoy my company, and white kids would enjoy my company because of the area that I lived in. I think having a big family as well also helped us become more solid.
How big?
Yeah, so 7 sisters, 2 brothers. So we all lived in one house, and we were quite tough. We had to be tough. So all our neighbours and people around us used to say, "Oh, they're all right. They're all blacks," which wasn't all right, but they accepted us. But any other black family that came into the area, it was just hell. It was just like, you nignog, you coon, get out of our neighborhood. You know, it was just horrific. Even thinking about it now, it's like, yeah. There was also areas that even though we lived in an all-white area, but there was areas that we could not go into in Liverpool. You just couldn't. It was just proper like national fun territory, and we knew if we would venture into that area, it was going to be trouble. So we were. I mean, at the end of the day, at that time, it was rife. It was there for everyone to see. We couldn't really complain to the police because they were just as bad. Couldn't really complain to our teachers because they would see it every day. It was just racism back then wasn't looked on as what it is now, in the same way.
Is that to say that it's dealt with?
No,
not at all.
So it's not. Yeah, this is Liverpool in the 70s. This
is Liverpool,
80s.
and then I moved to Oxford. No, yeah, from Liverpool to Oxford, and even though Oxford's a bit more multicultural, and we lived in a more mixed area in Oxford. There was still racism there, but I didn't. So part of me, as a youngster, knew what I was getting in myself into, because it was just my town. I was born in Liverpool. It was my city. Oxford was a different kettle of fish, less of it, but still there. When I came down to Sussex, that was a whole new ball game. It was a whole new territory.
Not in a good way.
It was like going back into the dark age. I remember coming down and I had some friends, and we walked into a pub in a certain area and the whole pub went quiet. It was just, and then people just started looking at me as if to say, what are you doing here? And we are talking 25 years ago. Also, like, I remember getting pulled by the police 4 times in a week, 2 of them for walking. I was walking in the park and the police stopped me and said, your description's been given for a break-in. And I'm like, well, what description's that, please? And it just went backwards and forward. And it wasn't until I made a strong complaint that it sort of like eventually stopped. But that they were the things that, and I've constantly, I know it's not something that I go on about, but I've constantly from the age where I can remember lived with the tension of being racially abused.
What about yourself, Jodie? Obviously, 25 years ago.
Yeah, it definitely is still very much here today. Even a month ago, so I went to a football game, myself and Alicia and Josh, and we were just watching the game, and people were getting very aggressive to the black players, the Chinese players, shouting all names under the sun. And me and Alicia were just staring at each other thinking, like, what? Because obviously you face like microaggressions or things every day. But when it's so blatant and things like that, it's just like, and there was children right behind us. They were saying, break his legs, kill him, all sorts of things. And it's just like, it's not, things have changed.
What's the word?
Derogatory, terms
as well, and the N-word and things like that.
It was just horrific. And I think it kind of ruined it for me and Alicia because we were so excited to go and watch the game, and then it just ruined the whole experience. I think going through school, me and one of my best friends, she was black, we were in top sets, but given the lowest grades of the class, like predicted the lowest grades of our class. Everyone else was predicted to pass. We were always predicted to fail, even though we were in top sets. And people could tell it's the only 2 people of colour in here are predicted the lowest grades. And people knew that we could do the work and pass and stuff. And even things like even things now when people will come up to me and touch my hair, thinking that it's like funny, or not even that it's funny, not that it's funny, Dad does that, but that it's like an okay thing to do because my hair's different. But it's like dehumanizing because you do that to a pet. You wouldn't do that. If I came up to somebody and started stroking their hair, they'd think, what are you doing? Because it's not even like, they shouldn't do it anyway, but you haven't even asked for permission. Some people would just come up and just shove their hands in my hair. Like, it just takes away your rights as a human and things like that. So I think definitely very much still around today, being followed in shops, asking, are you going to buy that? It's every day. It's in every day, I think. And
the examples that we're using, it's like when she says followed in shops, there's other people in the shops.
Yeah.
And people, and they're not getting asked, or are you going to buy that? Or security saying, can you just, we're doing a random check, can you empty your bags? You know?
So there's different ways it expresses itself. How do, obviously at times, more aggressive, and maybe at times others less, people less aware of what they're doing, and yet still in a way that is making you feel uncomfortable. And how do you cope? How do you process these things? How do you get through these things in the moment and as you process them afterwards?
I think in the moment, I think every time it happens, sometimes you get used to certain things. Like when I was younger and people would touch my hair or ask me something like I was a science experiment, or just ask loads of things. Oh, is that your mum? It's like, and I because my mum's white, people don't know, but I think I got used to that and I'd kind of accept it. But then things like being followed and people shouting racial abuse and stuff, it would always be incredibly hurtful. And I think a lot of the time I would internalize it rather than maybe saying something, or because other people didn't know what to do in that situation, other white friends and things like that, everyone would just stay silent, and I'd feel like I'd get told off if I'd say something. So I think now I will stand up against it, and I will say, what you're doing isn't right. I will. I also pray for these people, because I know that it's. Some people don't know what they're doing. Some people have been brought up in a way that is, they're told, they're not educated about people, or celebrating other cultures and other races. They don't do that, so they just look at your difference as being wrong or weird. So I pray for change and in people's hearts. And yeah, I think in some cases a lot of people don't know. So if somebody came up and started touching my hair or something, I'd just say, you know what, I don't like that. How would you feel if I just started stroking it, or I actually do it in some cases, and then they'd realise, okay, what I'm doing is weird. Yeah. But yeah, I think it depends what it is really, but I do really like to deal with anything, because also for my little brother and sister, I know they experience this stuff in their school, and I want to make things different for them, because growing up it was a real challenge, and I'm grateful that I had my siblings. I'm one of 5. I'm grateful that I had them, but at the same time, in my year at school, I was probably one of 6 out of 250. So being that minority, it makes you feel, I think if people can understand it and celebrate you more, and learn about your culture, it's so much better than. Yeah,
I think what helped was that obviously they were born in Sussex, in an area that didn't have, well, again, probably about 2 black families.
Yeah, not many. Yeah, not many at all.
So they were around. But what helped, because I played for the football team, and not being modest, but quite good. but
not now.
Until I played for the football team, I was not really accepted. And once they sort of accepted me, and it was like being in that village and being in that area and playing all these, they were like, oh, there's Simo's kids there. You know what I mean? It was almost like, they're okay. They're,
a bit of again, there are blacks.
Yeah.
And when they saw me doing youth work and working with their kids, and just it started to break that. I knew from an early age. I don't know what, but I knew from an early age that God wanted me to make a difference. I don't know how I can tell you this, but I knew that even when people used to say racist things and horrid. And I used to see it. Most of my friends would want to fight, and they probably would at times. I would just want to do the opposite thing. I'm going to change your mind. Yeah. I'm going to show you something that is a better way. I'm going to show you what I'm like. I'm going to show you that we are equal. We are the same people, and I know that I did not know at the time. I did not know, because I don't think I was following God at a young age. But I knew that there was something birthed in me that wanted to make a difference, so that my white friends and my white friends' parents and my black friends, and they could see us as being equal and not look at the colour of my skin, or black people look at white people and automatically think, oh, could they be racist?
Sorry.
So I guess fast forwarding now to today, you feel that sense for Grace Church in some ways, and as your role here, and to
100%. If we look, listen, this is probably hard hitting. If we think that there's not racism in the church, think again. There is prejudice, there is racism within the church. I've experienced it. I've experienced racism within the church. My girls have experienced racism within the church. You know, I've experienced people saying things like, "Oh, the black people around are going to be happy Simo's leading worship," and just things like that. And so, you know, it's just. But I feel a sense of I want to own this. I want to own to say, look, we as a church, we can all do better. We can all move forward in the area of making people feel loved, making people feel wanted, when I've seen people like come in and sit down and then somebody of colour, black person sit next to them and twos, they made up to go to the toilet and then sat somewhere else. And you know, I probably at the time should have said something, but you know, my tendency to want to be a guy of peace and want to see the good in people comes out, but I know that sometimes can be a negative, because if we want to make change, if we want to move forward in this, we need to call things out for what they are. Mm-hmm. And that goes both ways. So, like, if you're a white person and you're not sure if you're offending someone or what to ask, it's fine. And if you're a black person, and because I think that at times I've been in the wrong by not saying anything or assuming stuff, and I think we can help our brothers and sisters, our English brothers and sisters, to know by being approachable.
Yeah, I don't even just think it's just black though. It's all ethnicities though, 100%. All ethnicities, and I think it's more than just being aware of when we're being, you know, maybe inappropriate or offensive to someone, but also learning about their culture, understanding, what kind of things do you do in your country, from where you're from, like, you know, embracing it and celebrating it rather than just, you know, not wanting to be offensive and that's it. But because we live in England, we're in the culture we live, but we also have things from back home, and you know, finding out about where each other's from is something that, you know, is great.
I am proud to be English. I am proud that I was born in Liverpool. You know, it shaped me. You know, I am proud to be English, but I am black. Yeah. And I am proud to be black British. I am proud. My kids are probably described as being black. They are proud to be mixed race. You know, they are proud to be, you know, I'm proud to have a loving white wife. You know, they are proud to have a loving white mum. You know, and I embrace that. I embrace, you know, different. I love people. I love Grace Church. I love the fact that we can try to celebrate the different cultures within our church, but we can do more. Mm-hmm. We can be better at this in educating people, in showing, listen, this is a God thing. You know, you know, we got to. It ultimately comes down to being about the gospel. Yeah. And teaching people. The gospel's colourblind. It doesn't look at colour. It doesn't look at, you know, where you come from, how you speak. It looks at, look, what's your heart? And it's about the loving grace of God, understanding God's grace is for all people. And that's what we as a church should be rejoicing and celebrating in all cultures, loving each other, you know, walking together as one in unity, in oneness, as the Bible teaches us to do.
That's it. I mean, and that we have the answer in the gospel, don't we? Do you know what I mean? And I think even personally, I think we can be, and I think I have, because I'm confident we've got the answer. Sometimes I think we can downplay the problem. The answer is, the solution is the gospel. That's not to say that there's not still a problem. And so it's acknowledging, I guess today is the beginning of a conversation and a dialogue, isn't it? This isn't like this is where we're dealing with this, but this is the beginning. Let's do what we can, and both those things, acknowledging, hearing, is so helpful. You know, that the reality of it, and that your experiences are different to mine as a white guy in England today, and yet the answer is in the gospel. We're united in Christ, and I hope for that.
Yeah, I know a lot of people may be watching this and thinking, well, I'm not. Does it really still happen today? Well, yeah, it does. And just even like, I know I've had conversations with friends of mine that are white, and they just had no clue until certain things happened, like obviously the George Floyd. And they had no clue, and I had people phoning me up and said, do you really like suffer in this way? Does this still go on? And I'm like, yeah, you know. And I mean, what experiences have you had, if any, of seeing black people or any of your friends? I don't know if any of your friends were black and growing up. And
I don't know if I'm just blind or I think in many ways I didn't acknowledge the significance of the problem. Do you know what I mean? And things like George Floyd and others are helpful, you know, and read around and it's helped me. That's kind of what I'm getting at in terms of, I think because I felt like, well, the answer's the gospel, and it is, but it has downplayed the significance of the problem. And whether I've seen it and just either not noticed it or written it off as, I've seen that, but I don't think that's significant. It's helpful to hear things like touching the hair, stuff like that. It's so helpful to hear in terms of to talk about that it's incidental, and yet it has an effect, and it is isolating and unhelpful. So as this is the beginning, we're going to do something in September.
Yeah, we are going to do something in September. We're going to gather people. People are welcome. We haven't got a date yet, but we will post out a date where we're going to gather people. We're going to hear people's stories about what they've experienced, and we're just going to try to learn from each other. We also want to celebrate the different cultures and the different diversities within our church. Not because we have to, but because this is the gospel. Yeah. Let's celebrate one another. Let's enjoy, whether it be, having food together, different cultures of food, hearing stories, finding out about our brothers and sisters. Get to know the different diversities within your church. Get to know somebody that's coming in and sitting down for the first time. Invite them to your home for dinner, or vice versa. And it works both ways. Both ways it works. Look, I'm not saying people don't stick to the
familiarity.
That's it. They will stick, and you have friends, and you will. But at the same time, there's no place for not getting to know your brothers and sisters in Christ. Yeah. No place for not wanting to find out about where somebody comes from, or
their life experiences.
Their life experiences, and vice versa. Don't. This church is here for all, and it needs to be welcoming to all, whether where you come from, creed, color, whatever nation, wherever you come from. Listen, let's celebrate one another together.
Yeah. So September, an evening, keep the conversation going, doing what we can.
Yeah. And don't feel afraid. Guys, do not feel afraid to approach a black person and say, look.
Or anybody.
Yeah. That's a good point, that. Anybody. Don't be afraid to
open dialogue.
Dialogue and ask, is this offensive? Or we love our church. what we love Christ,
Yeah.
and ultimately that's who we live for.
How would you sum up? What's your prayers? What are you longing for? What do you want to get out of all of this? The beginning of this conversation.
My prayers are for everybody to understand one another, and for us to be able to make sure that the next generation coming up is a generation that's accepting and celebrative. I don't know if that's a word, and loving to everyone.
Yeah.
No matter color, disability, whatever, anything, that when we look at other people, we just see a friend, or, not what stands out first thing, And even if the fact that they're black or disabled or anything like that stands out, then ask them about it. It's something to be, and my prayers are, for our church to just, embrace everybody who comes through the doors, and just to, be loving to everybody, and to stand up against things that we know are wrong, not just within church but outside. If we see anybody being oppressed or anything like that, for us to stand up and do what's right, because that's what Christ tells us to do, and that's what Christ did as well.
Yeah. My prayer would be that, it says in the Word of God, I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I don't want to be ashamed to proclaim the gospel, whether I'm black, whether it's white to white. I don't want our church to be ashamed to live out everything that God's calling them to, but also to stand up for what is right. And do not it's not a time to turn in our backs or turn in a blind eye, or if you see someone being offensive, to just say, oh, well, it wasn't to me, so I'm not really going to say anything. It's for us all collectively to learn, us all collectively to model Christ in a way that stamps out the injustice of racism and other things that are not right within society, and not just within church, on the street. If you see something happening on the street, be bold enough to say, that is not right. And for us to model Christ in all of this, and not think of, oh, I'm hard done by. Because this isn't I'm hard done by because I'm black. No, I am proud to be black. I am glad God's given me the opportunity to be who I am, in spite of being abused. I wouldn't change it, as in, I wouldn't change the person and the years that I've got, because it shaped me.
Yeah.
It has shaped me, and it shaped Journey, and it shaped all my other kids, and it shaped my wife, and, it's just helping people to do better, and to recognize we are in Christ Jesus. We have to do better. Yeah. That is my prayer.